All right, let's talk about the life cycles of a business. Every single business has a life cycle pretty identical to the lifespan of a human. And so we're going to talk about that in stages so that you can understand. And the purpose of this is so that you can identify where you are in your business. You'll be able to identify where you are as an owner, where your departments are, and where your industry is. And there's a reason for all of it. So let's just get through the stages, and then we can go through what it means. The first stage is called birth. This is the moment that a business owner decides to start the business, funds it, and gets it up and going. Okay, so the next stage is what we call infancy. Infancy, look at it as your baby, right? Your business is your baby. Infancy is the baby cannot take care of itself. It has no means of taking care of itself. It's just getting up and going. The goal in this stage of a business is just to survive, to get up and going, right? Now, if your baby was hungry and it needed to be fed, and you look in the refrigerator and there's some food in there, not a lot of food, but there's some food in there. Are you going to eat first, or are you going to feed your baby first? You should probably feed your baby first, right? So your business, your baby is not capable of taking care of itself. It needs to be fed. And the mistake that a lot of business owners make is they don't yet understand at this stage the difference between revenue and profit. And I'll explain the cycles in a little bit here. So if the parent wants to take food away from the baby at this stage, we call those little piggies, right? You need to make sure that your baby is healthy and can survive. The next stage is what we call a toddler. The toddlers are now beginning to talk and walk. They're now being able to be a little bit busy. At this point in your business, you're an army of one. You're still by yourself. The goal here is to get sales and to grow and to survive. But as a toddler, even though you can walk and talk a little bit, they still need the parents' full attention, because the baby can crawl down steps, it can grab a knife, it could put something in its mouth that it's not supposed to, and it still needs food. So again, if you open your refrigerator and you see some food in there and your baby's hungry, your toddler's hungry, you're going to feed it first. And this is that stage of that cycle. I'll talk about it now. Is you have sales. Sales converts over to revenue. The revenue comes into profit. The profit goes into what we call CapEx. CapEx is the investment needed to run the business. And that's going to go back into more inventory, more lead generation so you to get more sales. Don't take food away from the baby at this stage. It's not ready for it. Okay, the next stage is the teenage years. Now, as a teenager, if you remember when you were a teenager, or if you have some at home, a teenager feels invincible. We can do anything that we want to do. We're Superman. Nothing's going to harm us. It's at this stage of the game where we're going out there and taking risks. We're testing our limits. We're seeing what we can and cannot get away with. Even though the parents don't need to take care of the teenager like they did the toddler or the infant, the teenager still needs the parents because it's still not yet capable of being on its own. They still need guidance. Now, at this stage in your business, you might have a few employees, 2, 3, 4 employees, 5 employees, but at the end of the day, the decision making still ends up on your desk. You're still the decision maker. Okay? You might be able to take a little bit of profit here, but probably not, but it would all depend. So what happens is you have your sales goes into revenue. Revenue goes into profit. Profit goes into CapEx. If there is what we call free cash flow, which is leftover profit that does not have to go back to generate new sales or more sales or to grow, then you can take some of that at this point in time. But not a lot of teenage companies get to that point. The next stage is what we call young adults. Young adults, for the first time, are on their own in life. They've figured out what they can do and can't do. They are capable of taking care of themselves. At this stage of your business, you have finally, for the first time, put a professional management team in place. And the decision-making process is made by your management team based on the culture that you set within your business. It does not need you to finalize any decisions anymore. At this stage, what you should see are sales, revenue, profits, CapEx, and then you're going to see a tree branch that comes off as what we call free cash flow. The excess cash that isn't needed to keep running the business in that cycle. At this point in time, that free cash flow should be able to be sent to business owners in the form of dividends or owner pay or whatever you want to call it. At this point in time, you can also take loans to the business and use the free cash flow to pay those loans. But at any stage of that cycle before the teenage years, if you're taking owner income, dividends, any type of pay from your business, and you're wondering why your cash flow isn't there, where your cash is going, trying to take loans to make the business go, now you know why. After the teenage years, you get into your prime. Your prime is what we call the zone of maximum maturity. At this point in time, your revenue is through the roof, your sales are through the roof, your profits are through the roof. You have your management team and your employees, everybody's in unison, everything is working beautifully. As time goes, we begin to age. And when you get into the aging stage of this, you turn into your midlife evaluation, right? These are like the midlife crisis. You're beginning to evaluate certain things because for the first time, you're starting to see your sales and your revenue come down a little bit from where they were. Now, your profits are still strong. And the reason for that is that your management team is mature. You've understood what you can get away with running your business. You've probably thinned your herd a little bit. And if you want to look at it in the form of what we're talking about, your kids are out of the house, right? Maybe you don't need that big of a house. Maybe you've cut some expenses that you don't need anymore. And so even though your sales and your revenue is starting to decline, your profit is still strong. But it's at this point in time you're evaluating, what do we do? How can we be relevant again? How can we change? What new products can we offer? Things along those lines. As time goes, the next stage is aging. We're now getting old. Now you're starting to really see your sales and your revenue kind of come down. Your profit's still strong because, as we age, your investments are there. You're beginning to retire, right? And so you've saved up some money. You have some reserve capital, but you're really at this point in time losing relevancy within your business. Eventually that leads to hospitalization. We get to a certain age where we're in and out of the hospital a lot and we're really on life support. Now, not only are our sales and our revenue down, but our cash is starting to deplete, and maybe we have to cut some people. We have to cut some departments because we're just not being able to afford it. And we're trying to make our cash last as long as it can. Eventually, this leads to the death of the business. Okay. Now, somewhere in the aging phase, it is possible to reinvent yourself like Apple and so many other businesses have, but you have to be constantly innovating. We've talked about that in other videos, constantly innovating, constantly looking at what your customers need so that you can find a new space within your industry. Understanding these life cycles, you can look at your business and say, where am I? And the real question is, we all have problems. Your business has problems. Okay. But the idea is when I can identify where I am on that cycle, I can understand if my problems are normal problems or abnormal problems or pathological problems. Because if I'm a toddler and my problem is cash flow, I don't have cash, well, that's a normal problem because you're not supposed to at that stage. We can fix some things here and there because I promise you probably, maybe you're taking too much money. Maybe you have, too much payroll. I don't know. We have to take a look at that, but it's a normal problem to have. Now, if you're in your prime, if you're in your zone of maximum maturity, and you're saying, I don't have cash flow. Well, that is either abnormal or pathological. We'd have to take a look at the management. We'd have to take a look at what's going on and understand why. But it allows you to understand. Now, here's something to look into. This is the same thing for your business, whether you're going to start one, whether you have one now, or whether you're looking to invest into one. Where is the business in its life cycle? And then understand that the industry follows the same life cycle. So if you have a toddler of a business in an aging industry, that's probably not very good, right? If you have an aging business in a toddler industry, you started too soon. Sometimes being ahead of the curve isn't always the best either. Let's say you have a company and you're in your prime, and as you're in your prime, you're opening up new divisions of your company, and you're like, this division is not working. This product is not working. Well, if you're in your prime and you opened up a new product because the industry, let's say, is a teenager with the product that you opened up, it's, you're trying to follow that curve, but that department itself is in its infancy or its toddler stage. Now you understand that some of the problems you have might be normal. See, a lot of business owners quit too soon, but now you can understand the life cycles. You can understand where you are. So take a look at where you are. It'll help you out. It'll help you identify what you need to do. Hope that helps.